Welcome to tutorial series on SQL and database. This is chapter 6, create database with custom data and log files. In the previous chapter we saw how to create a database with default settings where we were not changing anything. So in this database we will create a database with custom defined data and transaction log files. So let's get started. Types of DB files. When you create a database with default settings, two types of files are created: data file and log file. What is data file? It contains data and objects such as table, indexes, SPs and views. Every database must have at least one primary data file. Default file extension for primary data file is .mdf. If primary data file is unspecified, then the first file in createDB statement becomes the primary file. Log file. Log file holds the log information that is needed to recover the database. There must be at least one log file for each database. Recommended file name extension for transaction log file is .ldf. You can have multiple log files. If you are not specifying log file in createDB statement, then a default log file is created at default location. Here you can see, like, for each of the databases in my SQL server, there exists a MDF file and LDF file. These are the system database of SQL server, for which we see all the MDF and LDF file. Now let us create a new database and check whether we are able to see the LDF and MDF file newly created. So let me first log in into my SQL server. So this is my query. Here I am creating a database array. In file name I have set the path where the MDF file will be created. In size, max size and file growth, I have not specified KB, MB or GB. So by default all the spaces will be allocated in MB. Then we have logon. Logon is used to specify the transaction log parameters. So the name of the log is sarin_log. In file name I have specified the path of log file where the log file will be created. I have specified file, max size and file growth in MB. Even if I remove MB, all the sizes will be in MB. Let me execute it. So now the command is completed. So let me refresh. So I see the database created. Now let us see the database file. So here you can see that the two files are created, .mdf and .ldf, at the part I have specified in the DB statement. Now let us create one more database without specifying the primary file and creating a log file in a different location. This is the query which I have created. So here I have not specified any primary. So my first file will become the primary data file. Here the name specifies the logical name and file name specifies the physical file name. The size of the database is 100 MB. The file growth is 10 MB. Okay, let us execute this one. After execution, let us see the database. So yeah, I see the database created. Then I go to the path where I have created the data. You can see the MDF file and see this log file. This log file is created at D drive log file where I have specified. So using the file name parameter, you can change the path of the log file or the data file. Now let us see one more example where we don't create a log file. So what will happen? Here I have specified only the MDF file. Now let me change the path of the MDF file also. So let us change the size to GB and the file growth to some 100 MB. Here also I have not specified any primary, so the first file will become the primary database file. Let us execute it. Okay, some error, not enough disk space. Okay, here I have specified the size as 1000 GB. So obviously I don't have 1000 GB in my database in my disk drive. So I will make the size as 1 GB and now I will execute the query again. Since the database file is huge, it will take time creating the database file and MDF file. Command is executed. It almost took 36 seconds to create a database of size 1 GB. Now let us see the files. So here in the D drive of log file, I can see the two files, the LDF file and MDF file. So the size of the LDF file is around 250 MB and the size of the MDF file is 1 GB. So you can also check the database file using the properties of the database from SSMS Studio. So here you can see the size is 1 GB and log file is 260 MB. Do's and don'ts while creating a database. First one is set a reasonable size for your transaction log. The thumb rule is like the transaction log file should be around 20 to 25% of your database size. For example, if your database size is 1 GB, then the log file should be around 250 MB. The database which I have created of 1 GB, the log file which was created was around 260 MB. So that is a general thumb rule. Smaller the size of a database, greater should be the size of the transaction log. So if your database size is around 10 MB, then the transaction log file size should be 5 MB. But if the database size is around 500 MB, then the transaction log file should be around 100 MB. Leave autogrow feature on for the data file and log file. So you should not restrict the database to not grow automatically. Let the SQL server increase allocated resources without any DBA intervention. Now if you have a DBA, then the autogrow feature may be useful. But if you don't have a DBA to manage the databases, then you should not set the autogrow feature as off. Set a reasonable size for the autogrow increment. Autogrow statement does result in some performance degradation. Therefore, you should set a reasonable size for the autogrow increment to avoid automatic growing too often. Try to set the initial size of the database and the size of the autogrow increment so that automatic growing occurs only once or twice per week. Set the maximum size of the database and log file. Set the maximum size of the data in log files so that the disk drive don't run out of space. If the disk run out of space, then your DB will crash and it will not be able to save, do any transaction or insert, update or delete any records. Don't create many data and log files on the same physical path. Creating the log files and database files on the same physical path can cause fragmentations. In most cases, it is better to have only 1 or 2 database files on the same physical disk. So if you have 3 drives C, D and E, then create 2 database files on C drive, 2 on D drive and 2 on E drive. Place the log files on different physical disks than data files. Since the logging is very resource intensive, it is better to store the log in a different disk because saving the log files on the same disk will have certain performance degradation. Transaction log files and data files should be placed in different locations to reduce I/O contention between them. This is a common practice followed by DBA, not only for performance but also for reliability, because in scenario of system crash, recovery of the last transaction is possible only when you don't lose both the data files and log files at the same time. So it is better to store data files and transaction log files separately for DB performance, reliability and disaster recovery. That's it in this video. Keep watching for more such videos. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, then please like, share and comment, and don't forget to subscribe my channel.